Thank you very much, everybody, for joining this seminar series. This is the third one. As promised, we'll aim to run it on the third Friday of every month until I run out of speakers, or you tell me to stop. There we go. Yeah. So hi. For those of you who don't know, my name's Nick Spencer. Welcome and thank you for joining us or watching this video on YouTube. I get, here we go again. 2021. Certainly in the UK, we're locked down again, and across the world, we have the vaccine programs kind of rolling out, but times are still tough, and to lighten the mood, I wanted to share something that I did before Christmas. I don't know what the traditions are like in other countries around the world, but in the UK, panto season around Christmas time is quite a tradition. So going to the theatre to watch a pantomime is something that a lot of families enjoy during the Christmas period, and clearly cramming hundreds of people into a theatre wasn't going to be happening this year. But what did happen was that there was quite a few entrepreneurial initiatives around parking lot pantos and parking lot concerts, and me and my family attended a panto in the parking lot, and it was absolutely brilliant. You tune in via a radio frequency to get all of the audio streamed into your car. There are big screens. You can see the actors live on stage. They run around the car park, and it was absolutely brilliant. And it was a fantastic way to keep that tradition of panto going in a kind of COVID-safe manner. So I wonder what sorts of innovative traditions you've been involved with over the Christmas period, and I wonder which ones we might keep going. So this seminar series is a bit of cake, an acronym I've borrowed from the Creative Fuse program here in the northeast of England. So collaboration and knowledge exchange, and that's what this session is about, a bit of cake. And the aim is that this will be a monthly meetup to promote our understanding of design-led approaches to social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And in the broadest sense, that's about how we apply creativity to support these sorts of social actions and action for social positive change. Again, I say this every seminar, it'll take a community effort, not only to achieve those things of social innovation and social entrepreneurship, but actually just to make this cake a success. So I do urge you to volunteer to be a speaker, to think about how you might contribute in a whole range of ways, simply by asking questions during the session and being engaged. But it'll take all of us getting involved to make this as rich as it can be. As always, I'm recording this session and I'll post it up onto YouTube. There is a playlist, and we'll build this as a collection of talks on the subject as we go along. And again, it would be fantastic to have you as a speaker. So let me know if you're willing to talk at one of these. So we have one speaker today, Dr. Zsolt Bugarszki. He'll correct my pronunciation, I'm sure. From Tallinn University in Estonia. He's going to speak about their Social Entrepreneurship Master's Program. And I'm really looking forward to that. I believe he's going to speak for about 30 minutes, and then we'll have some time for a discussion as well. I'm also going to talk about how, as a work group, we're going to work together. And I think there are 6 invitations that I'm going to put out at the end of this, which I'll put into writing in due course and send out to the network. But before I hand over to Zsolt and give him the floor, there are a couple of things that I found that I wanted to share with you because I thought they were interesting. But before that, I remember the days when we used to work in studios and be physically together. And certainly in my working context and environment, the studio, the physical spaces that we occupied and worked within and worked through, was such an important component of how we worked. And I would talk at great lengths about the value of the studio space as a physical manifestation of thinking, and that we populate our walls and our spaces with our emerging thinking as an external expression of where we are. And that just isn't happening in the way that we're working at the moment. But there are all sorts of really interesting things happening digitally that replicate those studio spaces in different ways. So there were a lot of people that thought that the types of co-creative, collaborative practices that are the hallmark of a lot of design-led approaches would be lost without the physical interactions, but actually, we seem to be quite adept to using a variety of digital tools to replicate those things. And actually, what's emerging is that there are a number of advantages to some of those that aren't anticipated and that we don't have in physical space. But what I wanted to share with you was just a number of academic initiatives that relate to design for social innovation, and I think they're interesting. I think they're interesting for us perhaps to have a deeper dig into in maybe a future seminar series, and also perhaps to have the examples from other countries around the world as well. Maybe you can share those with me. So this is the London College of Communication, an MA in Design for Social Innovation. And that's fascinating. And I think one of the things that we can do is, we can probably access their program descriptions and their module descriptors and have a look at what specific design methods are being embedded within those programs. And I think that'll be interesting. I may even be able to reach out to some of the academics on these courses to speak at some of these seminars. Here's another one. This is an MFA, Design for Social Innovation in America. This one's based in New York. And again, fascinating master's level program that is dedicated to design for social innovation. Again, we can get at their program materials and really interrogate those, which I think will be a good activity to do. Ravensbourne, again, a London-based institution, an MDes. So we've had an MFA, an MDes, and an MA. But service design and social innovation again, and design leadership. Again, a slight different twist in the language, and it'll be interesting to look at how they articulate what they do, and the distinctiveness between these different programs. Here's another one. This is D School at Stanford. Again, they have a long history of exploring design thinking. And this is designing for social systems, which is really interesting. And again, if you go to this site, there are links that take you to a whole range of different resources and tools. Again, fascinating, and I think something that we can pool and have a review of. This is quite old, this initiative, but it's interesting. So this was a social innovation boot camp in Qatar, supported between the Royal College of Art and a university in Qatar. Again, looking at how you embed design and social innovation methods for practitioners in real world contexts. So really interesting and a different kind of model, not one that you come across that often. This one's, again, it is quite interesting and different to the previous ones that I shared. So this one's a university based in Singapore, but it's focused for social workers, and it's in the context of social science and social working. But it's about introducing design thinking to social workers within their context and how it can support their ways of working. So again, a different introduction and embodying of design thinking and design-led approaches in a non-designerly context. This is the last one that I wanted to share. University of Virginia, design thinking for the greater good. I believe this is a kind of a free course, open for people who are professional practitioners in the social sector. Again, just a really interesting initiative, and there are lots and lots and lots of them out there. And I think one of the things that Workgroup 1 can and should do is draw together these different examples and look at the different models that underpin them. And we can have an analysis of the types of methods and approaches that are being deployed, and perhaps reach out to some of these individuals leading these programs to have a dialogue, which I think is what that sentence says. So anyway, let me introduce Zsolt and hand over the floor to him. Thank you very much for giving up some of your time and engaging with us. We're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So I will take off control of the talk and hand back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. You pronounce my name almost perfectly. My name is Zsolt Bugarszki.
Okay.
This is a Hungarian name. I'm Hungarian originally, but I have been living and working in Estonia for 8 years now. And I share my screen. And I just wish to find where is my, oh my God. Yes. Do you see my slides?
We do, yeah, that's popped up perfectly.
Yeah, okay. So at the moment when I am opening these slides, I am losing any contact with you. So I am talking to my own slides, but I fully encourage you that if you have any questions, meanwhile, I will talk like 30 minutes and we will have like 10 minutes as a discussion. But even during my presentation, maybe you can type it into the chat, and then when I close my sharing, then I stop sharing, then I can read it. So, and of course we can also talk. So what I would like to talk about, and thank you for inviting me for this event, is the way we are working in Tallinn, Estonia, at Tallinn University, running the Social Entrepreneurship Master's Program, and what kind of creative approaches we are applying to move forward entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial thinking. I sort of like the title because really we need to be very creative when it comes to an academic institution. So at the beginning of my short presentation, I will describe the program, but then I will speak rather about our challenges and of course our success and which way we are trying do this program in Estonia. I am using the university's template. Now we have a bit more sophisticated communication strategy and they gave templates for us. And I kept this from the template, this thinking unlimited as a buzzword, because we really need this when we try to apply a rather entrepreneurial program within a core academic institute. And the reason is because in this program we are following the project-based learning method. which practically means that students, which I rather prefer to call participants, are building their own social enterprise from day one. So from this year on, for example, when the admission process starts, applicants are obligated to upload their papers, of course, and instead of motivation letter, in our program, they have to send a project plan. This is a very strong message to all the applicants that we are waiting for people who are ready to realize an existing idea, or they are ready to join an existing project, either their future classmates projects or in their home country. And what we are experiencing, that students are coming from very different fields. Two main fields we are seeing is either they are coming with a business background, so having a bachelor in business administration, or personal history themselves as being entrepreneurs, even social entrepreneurs, or they've been running a family business and they would like to do it in a way that turning it to a social enterprise. And the other line is that people are coming with social background in social sciences, social work, social policy, communication, and they are rather, let me say, in a activism line, an activist background. And our challenge in this program that how to bring these two groups together and encouraging them to do actions, do development work, because the way we are teaching, if it can be called teaching, I don't like this word anymore, is learning by doing. So and this is the basic atmosphere we try to create at Tallinn University. And here is a little summary about our aim, and this is mainly about to promote purpose-driven entrepreneurship and innovation in the social and health sector, environment protection, urban development, rural development, and community development. And I would like to highlight the words here because the title of the program is Social Entrepreneurship Master's Program. But here in this sentence, we were rather writing the purpose-driven entrepreneurship. And later I will talk more about it, but this kind of vocabulary starts to be very important. We would like to rely in Tallinn on this very well developed and very vibrant startup sector. Estonia is famous of its digital society, the advanced tech sector, and the very entrepreneurial and really very successful startup sector. And many of them, their identity and the way they are doing business or doing whatever they are doing is more entrepreneurial. And Estonia is just one generation away from the communist past, being part of the Soviet Union. And this new type of entrepreneurs in Estonia are very proud of their entrepreneurial success because they take it as a given, how to say, proven evidence that we are also able to stand on our own legs. We are not always relying on state and government subsidies and the welfare system, which is almost non-existing in Estonia. And when or if we want to attract this sector, we need to be very careful with our vocabulary. And that's why nowadays, even myself, I prepare to use this term, the purpose-driven entrepreneurship. But on the other hand, our university has the profile of a university of social sciences, so education, psychology, history, all of these languages, media and social work, social policy, all of these sociology, social sciences are relevant, while the other large universities in Estonia are the Tallinn Technical University, which is all about technology, and university about agriculture is also very relevant in the countryside, in Tartu, and Tartu University is the large traditional research university. Oh, I am echoing somehow. So, this is the building. It's a little bit filtered photo. I never seen my own university in this picture, but that's the front side of Tallinn University. And I collected not all, but some of the courses just to demonstrate that which way we are approaching this topic, because we need to serve people coming from two very different fields, mostly mainly. There are also students who are coming from media, for example. And as I told you that a majority of our students are from all over the world, which means from Thailand and Taiwan to Brazil, and many students from West Africa, from post-Soviet countries. For some reason, Estonia is very famous among and very popular among people coming from post-Soviet countries: Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Armenia. These kind of countries, Vietnam, we also have the Far East and Taiwan. And such way we have a diverse, an extremely diverse group. The other large group is from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So it's really, really very diverse group. And nowadays, last year, we started to have more Western European students. So we have students from Scotland, Netherlands, Finland is very close, is nearby, Greece, and we had applicants from the United States also, but they choose other programs later. So we need to handle this diversity both by background and by nationality and culture they are bringing here. So the courses are built in a way that we try to create a common language. One of the very first courses is Social Entrepreneurship, the concept and practice. But as I emphasize that we are following the project-based learning, this very first course immediately starts with participation in a large startup initiative organized by 8 Estonian universities called the Starter Program. And in this program, students are creating teams. They can create teams within their cohort, social entrepreneurship students, but it's much better if it's much wider, because 7 other universities are also coming with their students. And in the first semester until February, they are thinking on a weekly basis on their own projects, when before COVID, it was when we physically could meet. All the meetings were even not, and this starter event, even not in the university. So we are using the infrastructure of the creative hubs, innovation centers in Estonia, in Tallinn. And this kickoff experience is very important, because we are always poking students that you are here for 2 years. This master's program is a 2 years long program. And we fully encourage everyone to utilize, and take advantage of the very vibrant Estonian innovation ecosystem. Every corner there is an innovation hub. Every week there is a hackathon event or any kind of innovation event. And we have our own, this starter event, where students start. So you may imagine this, that really from second week, they are already pitching and creating teams with their ideas, and all the classes which are listed after the first one is beside their very concrete development work. So we designed the courses so that those students who are coming with a business background, we are encouraging them to rather to take the social science related courses, civil society and social innovation. I didn't list it here, but we have about contemporary social problems. But on the other hand, we have many students coming with a background in social sciences, and for them it's more important to learn about how we develop and manage businesses. So here are the business development models courses. We didn't have even the appropriate human resource at Tallinn University for that. So what we did, we hired high profile business people from the Estonian business schools, and Yuko Mart is one of our favorite teacher in our program. It's very popular, his courses, and he's coming with an extremely strong business mindset. And this is very much needed because our colleagues, ourselves, myself also, I have background in social work and social policy. We are representing the value structure and the core values of social entrepreneurship while we needed to build up an atmosphere and an entire world that emphasizing the business side, because it's not enough just to have a nice idea and of course emphasizing and giving a weight to impact, but you also need to make it in a sustainable way, a financially sustainable way, and on a long run. Estonia is again not really famous of its generous welfare system. I was always feeling envy when I went to the Netherlands or the United Kingdom, okay, before, let's say 10, 15 years ago, where a lot of projects existed that they brought a project plan to the mayor or to some agencies or trusts, and they got financed. I am coming from Hungary, and I've been working for more than 25 years in the mental health fields, and with me never ever happened, even in the capital Budapest, which is the country in the country, that it was just enough to write a nice project plan, and it's like a wave of an increasing and rich welfare system, and the programs are subsidized. So the way I was educated and the way I experienced this entire field, if I had an idea, and many people have a lot of ideas, you need to work hard. And the reason why for example, my attention turned to social entrepreneurship is because I learned a lesson that nobody will support your project. It's not like you write a letter to the mayor and then there will be a budget. So that's why we find it extremely important, and we are borrowing the growth method and the development method with a very flexible but very small startup sector. Small by means that starting from scratch. And what we are trying to do here in Tallinn, and this is our creative way to approach social entrepreneurship, that we are utilizing and using the startup methodology and all the ecosystem, including angels, investors, but we try to translate it to social and environmental topics. And all the classes, all the projects we are developing are following this way of thinking. So we invited people from our media school, and they are teaching communication and PR the same way as they are teaching it to media experts and movie directors, or any kind of cross media is very popular in Tallinn. And such way it's an extremely multidisciplinary environment, and I have to tell you, with extremely different vocabularies and backgrounds. And the other specialty of Estonia is this very advanced digital society. The e-governance, and everything is manageable without exaggeration. Everything is manageable online in Estonia when it comes to relations between citizens and the government. And even legally, and how to say, from sociological perspective, is extremely interesting for me, that me as a citizen here in Estonia, I am the owner of all single data the state is having and archiving from me, and I have even access to the login file, so I can exactly see that which people, a policeman, a local government admin worker, is entering my data, and if I have questions, I can ask questions. So this is a very, very interesting experiment what Estonia is doing. And from social entrepreneurship perspective, it's also very good, because one of the advantages of this digital society, that the entry point to entrepreneurship is extremely low in Estonia. So establishing a company is 7 minutes, including the core decision. You don't need necessarily a bookkeeper, or you don't need to go to a notary. And what is not only a fantasy or a future projection, what is happening, that I've been working, for example, with user groups in the mental health field. People who experience mental health problems. And one of their symptoms is they are always very afraid to be among a lot of people, and the social anxiety is there. And they are running their own business. And they could establish a publishing house a couple of years ago, which became profitable in the first year, because they didn't were not obligated to have this mind-numbing bureaucracy and administration around establishing a business, always being disturbed by the authorities. As such way, the entry point is very low, and even vulnerable groups and people who are not really, let's say, born to be a businessman. Because when I was in Hungary, I always thought of entrepreneurs. It's a word in Hungarian which I am here in one corner, and entrepreneurs are somewhere else, and this is a different race. It's a different type of human being. You have to be born to be an entrepreneur. And Estonia taught me that it's not like that. You can turn yourself to be an entrepreneur immediately, and entrepreneurship is nothing else but a pathway to realize your ideas. And the last point about the courses is the EDU courses. EDU means life in Estonian, and this is a special, again, project-based course in Estonia, where the criteria is that minimum 6 students has together, and the supervisor, we don't call it teacher, a supervisor, and the 6 students have to come from 3 different fields, disciplines. So it can't be like 6 social entrepreneur master students are creating a team and they will run an ELU course. No, they have to attract IT, media, I don't know, social work, psychology, or whichever field. And 3 fields like this needs to get together, and they need to deal with a problem which is a real life problem, and the project which is really happening in real life. So it's not like a school task, it's not like a case study or a fantasy. They need to solve real life problems, and they need to present it. And basically, in the future, the university would like to sell this as to outside partners, entrepreneurs, governments, whatever. And it's extremely useful to our master's program. Here are the destinations, the possible outcomes, and we had only one cohort which graduated, and basically they became either social entrepreneurs who start their own business. It's very possible. They go hired by non-profit organizations, NGOs, work there as non-profit managers, or corporations being CSR manager. We have students who wrote wonderful master theses about impact analysis and measuring impact, and now they are working in projects helping different organizations to measure and visualize their social impact. Community development is very strong in Estonia, thanks God. They have a beautiful word for that. There are a lot of Estvedajad, and Estvedajad in Estonian means ringleader, those fellow citizens who are very active in the communities, and we are relying on them with many programs. And generally speaking, some of our students became project managers. I didn't list here, but we have students who became social media managers or media managers for social enterprises or ordinary companies. This became also one of the outcomes. So in the remaining 8 minutes, I want to raise a few questions, a little bit preparing a discussion and sharing some of the challenges we have. And I will talk about this more in a provoking way that maybe you will have a you will feel like to share your points. And I saw in the participant list that Audrona is also with us. Maybe Kadri is also arrived. They are my dear colleagues from Tallinn. So I really encourage both of you that extend my presentation and share with us your points also. So business or social movement. This is not only about the students are coming from two different direction, but I also sense a sort of tension around that, and not only in our program. So there is some certain narratives which is about social entrepreneurship supposed to be non-profit, supposed to serve directly social aims and purposes or environmental ones, and business is just like a side effect that generating some money and very strictly has to be reinvested any profit if there is any profit, but some people say it can't have any profit. And what I experienced here, that this is not only in our program but internationally, I realized that it works, and it happens. uh, we have a very extended, large international network. And I realize that when I speak with people from the United States, from Canada, or from the other side, Far East or Southeastern Asia, like Singapore, uh, they are very business oriented. So for there, the definition of social entrepreneurship is the future of business, doing business in a better way, and not a question at all that they are making money and they are having profits, and the social impact is part of their core activities, not necessarily they are giving away their profit. And just one example, a couple of months ago, I participated in an Irish event in Ireland organized by the Social Enterprise Network of Ireland. And since everything is online during the COVID, I also participated. I was very curious of their work. And there were some people also from the United Kingdom. And one gentleman in the comment section started to raise the question and the issue after the short presentations. Different Irish social enterprises introduced themselves, and one lady who is originally coming from California in the United States is running a social enterprise which is completely profit oriented. And this gentleman raised the issue that why are profit-oriented companies here? Because in the UK we have a very strict term of what does it mean social entrepreneurship, and is already defined. And whether you keep the truck, and social entrepreneurship is what the definition it is, and that's it. We can sense this. We can sense this in our program, but our approach, especially because we are living in Estonia, is more open to both the business uh, part. We have a student from Pakistan, but she has been living for more than 10 years in Dubai, and she's running a completely profit oriented gourmand business in these jumpers she's creating. And her approach, she said before she joined our program that she never thought of her business as a social enterprise. Only after she read about our program and this approach, she realized that this was a social enterprise. And the other issue in Estonia, that the connotation of the term social entrepreneurship is not always positive. Some people are making jokes that in a bank, we have a very good cooperation with the second largest bank in Estonia. And their staff members told us that, you know what we say in the bank about social entrepreneurs? Those entrepreneurs who didn't manage to make money last year. And sadly, they say, okay, last year I was a social entrepreneur. So like it's a little bit sounds like a loser, like a second-hand entrepreneur, and it's not like an emergent team. That's why nowadays in Estonia we prefer to talk about purpose-driven business. The third point is how to be entrepreneur in a classroom. We are in an academic institution, and Nick was showing these wonderful pictures about utilizing a room. We are still fighting with that because our classrooms looks like a 19th century classroom designed for lecturing. The teacher is speaking, the students are sitting in the rows, the frontal teaching, and our program is 3 years old, and we still couldn't manage to convince the university that we need a project room. I need beam sacks. I need a comfortable place that they can use 24 hours with some communication tools, the computer, internet access, and all the walls they can use with creative planning, visualizing, designing, and whatever. And we don't have this. We don't have this. At times I feel guilty that when we advertise the program, we promise the innovative Estonia, and students are sitting in a 19th century classroom at the end of the day. Thank God we are using many other places. This topic is also related to the big higher education issue. Is a university can a university be an entrepreneurial university? And has entrepreneurship any place in an academic institution? Here in Northern Europe, especially in Scandinavia, Sweden, in Finland, I saw that the answer is a big yes, and they are turning their higher educational system pretty much connected to their local economy. So you may say that they draw a circle like 100 kilometers around the university, and one of the matrix is that which way a university is affecting the economy, the society, the quality of life, everything of that university. While in a traditional academic institution, and Tallinn University is somewhere in between, is more related to the international network of scientists. The currency is the academic writing, the articles, and the impact factors, right? Not the social impact, the journal's impact. And this way we are dealing with academic work. And in this way, our social entrepreneurship master's program is a little bit a pink elephant in the room. I'm not always sure that we are at the right place. Project business development versus classes. I already mentioned this. And in our academic metrics, at the moment, we are not measured by how many spin-offs we have. And we have successful students who even in the second month of the program, they already established a company because it was 7 minutes here. And one of our students is running a book store here in Tallinn. But when I am going there, when I am participating with my students in a hackathon event, which is 2 days, usually on the weekend, is even not considered as working hours for me. Because for me, the working hours is teaching in classes, reading and evaluating the student papers, and writing articles. So we have a big conflict between our real activity, the entrepreneurial development activities, and the academic activities. And the last point I want to raise in my presentation is that the very controversial attitude toward innovation versus research. Kadri is my colleague, and if she is here, maybe she can say more about it. Last year, she was presenting her work about joining a lot of innovation projects. She is one of the wonderful colleagues in Estonia, in Tallinn University, who is pretty much into real life development, cooperating with local governments, with companies, with ministries, the SEB bank. This bank relationship is thanks to her, Kadri, who had this contact. And she was presenting her achievement about innovation to colleagues, of researchers, professors, lecturers of Tallinn University. And I was very surprised that she got very critical feedback, saying that university is not supposed to participate in innovation because innovation is risky, innovation is business. We are researchers who are looking at phenomena, looking from a certain distance. This research doesn't mean that product development research, but more like critical approach like sociology, and turning innovation as a part of a university life is rather commercializing science. And here we go. I am very proud of this program. I want to go deeper and deeper in these entrepreneurial activities, and I am very proud of the spin-offs of our students. But I am not always, not 100% confident that an academic institution is the right place or the most embracing place to do that. And that was my provoking closing sentence. I am very, very curious how you see this same topic. And I stop sharing, such way I will see faces.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. I know that Bridget's already posted a question in the chat. Before we go to that, I'll ask one of my questions. I was wondering about the relationship that you have had with the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Tallinn over the last 3 years or so, and whether it was always a very natural and comfortable fit in the types of enterprises that your students were hoping to develop, and the setup of the entrepreneurial initiatives, the hackathons, or whether actually there needed to be a few changes to better support social entrepreneurship in a hackathon setting.
Yeah. Thank you. I forgot to mention this because the critics are not only coming like they are looking down at social entrepreneurship. I think it's a transition period. So the good news, when one of the largest Estonia startup event where citizens are encouraged to come up with ideas, it's called Ajujakt, which means brain hunt. And really it's very bottom up. Everybody can come up with ideas. And lately, this Ajujakt has a different chapter, let's say like a special award or a special dimension under the title Social Entrepreneurship. So our leg is already in. So our nose is already in the story. But our students are coming back from the very first startup events that, guys, here nobody is dealing with social entrepreneurship. Very hard to attract fellow students to join my team because I am dealing with social problems and they want to make a lot of money with a fintech or a game industry development, and they say that you're supposed to go to a social work event or an NGO. So this is the mindset. Nobody looks at the moment at social entrepreneurship as I look at it, as the future of business. I believe that in 20 years, every single business will be a social enterprise. Otherwise, they die out.
That's fantastic.
We are not there yet.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I guess I'm wondering also whether you've sort of seen the organizations that are hosting and running these kind of startup events and hackathons, whether you've seen them shift as they embrace more social purpose driven organization and startup activity.
Not the way I would be satisfied. So if I see it, for example, the Ministry of Social Affairs are buying from the famous innovation centers, they're buying in themselves and they order a hackathon called, oh my God, what was the name? Anyways, I don't remember the title, but the topic was how to support people with disabilities in the community with any kind of technological. And that was sponsored or financed by the ministry. And this way, the startup ecosystem was, of course, resonating and as an assignment, they did it. But themselves, what I see as an unfortunate phenomenon that and now I allow myself to be critical with Estonia while I am loving Estonia. I love Estonia. But the famous startup sector is Tallinn and the suburb. And the countryside is in a deep crisis. And instead of dealing with these countryside issues in Estonia, I see the shiny startup sector to go to Kiev, to go to Georgia, and they are, of course, they are also harvesting the low-hanging fruits. where in the capital they create successful startups, while their own countryside is in a huge crisis. So they are not doing this transition, that using entrepreneurship as a very powerful method for problem solving, solving societal issues. And that what we did, we took the initiative and we initiated social hackathons in the countryside.
Fantastic.
But the startup sector was not participating.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you. Bridget, would you like to ask your question? Oh, Bridget, you're on mute.
Yes, excuse me. The classic. Thank you very much, Zsolt, for your very interesting presentation. It's always my question, also with respect to this collaboration in the COST project. How did you deal with the national and transnational issues in such hackathons or design thinking contexts? Since from a national or a perspective, very different problems might be relevant. And you said that you also had a transnational context there, an international a group of students. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I see two layers here, and we have two types of reactions. One is when we are working in a very international environment, then we need to respect very much the context, the path dependency, all the history and the legal environment of those countries where students or participants are coming from. So we completely allow students to develop their projects in a way as their national mindset is, even if the Estonian is not that. But I find this not the most advanced stage, because if I compare the social enterprise ecosystem globally to the global business ecosystem, this kind of multinational companies and their culture since decades is very well developed, that how they can penetrate the market globally. And if I translate it to social entrepreneurship, my translation sounds like how we can solve global problems globally, and the environmental problems are maybe the most obvious. And I'm not shy to borrow some multinational corporational solutions to take something to a global level. And for that, what we need is not only respecting the national circumstances, but creating an overarching culture, which of course relevantly has to differ from the corporate culture. But nowadays I am very interested that how we can multiply impact the same way in a multinational level than the business is doing. So when they introduce electric cars, it's immediately international, right? When they introduce these dumb smartphones, within a few years, it became international. Can we do the same with farming solutions or some trade solution, fair trade solutions, whatever, which became international? And I believe we need to act internationally in this way, which is not, we are in a very baby phase with that.
Fantastic, thank you. Petro has an interesting question about kind of entrepreneurial mindsets and the influence of an individual's kind of context. Could you ask your question, please?
It was rather a comment and not a question. I thought it was very interesting to hear about this kind of post-communist mindset, which is also strongly, I would say, inspired by liberal visions of society, and that there you will find lots of students perhaps with an entrepreneurial mindset, open to set up business in this kind of field of social problems. But of course, for example, in Switzerland, you will have a lot of pain to find somebody from this field dealing with social problems and social work, being able or willing to set up an enterprise. So the context is really important. and very different throughout Europe.
Yeah, and thank you that you are saying this, because as I understood, you're coming from Switzerland, right? And
Yes.
most likely the German-speaking part of Switzerland.
Yes.
And because the country where I experienced the largest resistance is Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood, maybe this is just my personal unluck that it happened to me, but I remember very first time at a social work conference, I was presenting about social entrepreneurship. And that time our master's program was rather a dream of mine. It didn't exist yet. It was an international conference, and colleagues from Germany gave very harsh feedback to me that the welfare system and the state supposed to address societal programs. That's why we are paying a lot of tax. And what you try to do is like the neoliberal way of thinking, bringing businesses to these very public issues. And this is completely not my approach. I am looking at businesses and startups, especially, as smart, flexible ways of problem solving. But I find it pity that the most successful startups are dealing with photo sharing applications and this kind of nonsense, instead of concentrating on real life problems.
Fantastic, thank you. That's great. Brogan has an interesting question about competition versus cooperation. Brogan, could you ask your question, please?
Hi, thanks, Zsolt. I've got a question on a situation where multiple social organizations are competing in the same space. In that sort of situation where they're profit-driven, is competition or cooperation encouraged? And would the profit or the social agenda take precedence in that situation?
Okay. In our practice, what we are doing, and we have a few initiatives, we already done this, is very interestingly, we encourage our students and participants to do both from simply micromanagement perspective. If you create an NGO, at least here in Estonia, you will have access to very different resources, and people will resonate with you very differently, like volunteers, like citizens, when you have a limited company. But when you have limited company, you can come up with a business profile where you can, for example, approach investors, which is a completely different fundraising strategy. And in many projects, we are doing both, and such way it will be like, I don't know which is the proper English word, but it will be like a company within the company. And on the other hand, what I experience, and unfortunately the data also shows this, so it's not only my pessimism. In Estonia, those social enterprises are much more successful who are coming with a business background and are working within the framework of being a business. Maybe because the ecosystem is more advanced to support them, and they are much more sustainable. Just one example, in Estonia, the government has a very strange attitude toward the so-called civil society. They don't consider it as a third sector, which has its own value. There is the public sector and there is a business sector. And if you are an NGO and you are non-profit, it's your dumb decision. You make your business non-profit, and it's your business, but you are still a private player. Such way that NGO type of charity organizations are not performing the same shiny way as businesses. So in Estonian context, we try to encourage them to open up for business activities, but we are also fighting with, and it's really the good word is fighting, with for-profit organizations, how to have a social impact, not as a greenwashing, but as a real social impact, not just like some CSR and 1% of our sales goes to here and there, but really finding their social identity. And this is the same way hard as encouraging NGOs to be a bit more entrepreneurial. So our strategy, we want to meet in the middle.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was recently in discussions with an interesting individual who has that kind of that dual model. So he's kind of a musician and artist by background, and he's been developing a range of technologies that are inclusive. That are inclusive technologies for the production of music, particularly addressing the needs of those with visual impairment. And he's developing this technology as a for-profit offering, and those profits help in part support his charitable function, which is a kind of separate legal entity, in terms of undertaking and creating performances and spectacles where people with visual impairments are creating and performing live music using the technologies that he's developed. So it's the dual model is quite an interesting thing. Thank you very much for the presentation. What we'll do, if it's okay with everybody else, is draw the kind of questioning to an end. If there is anything else that you want to ask, please just put it into the chat, and I'm sure that it can be addressed offline. I want to just share a couple more slides before we finish. If I can press the right buttons. Okay, here we are. So I wanted to make a number of invitations, and these will get written up and formally distributed across the network. But there are a range of different ways that you can engage with Work Group 1 and our kind of work program. Some of them are super easy. So share interesting stuff you come across. You can do that by simply emailing me, dropping it into one of these chat windows, or using the Google Drive that's set up for the cost action. But interesting, relevant literature or examples of design for social innovation or entrepreneurship, it would be brilliant to build our repository of interesting examples. So that's super easy. Share some of your stories. Super easy and fun. So please, if you've got some research or a project that you want to tell us about, you can present it at one of these seminars. Again, just let me know. It may well be that you just want to talk about how social innovation and social entrepreneurship is constructed at your institution. I'd be delighted to hear from you and give you some space in one of these seminars. So these are about sharing, and they're super easy. Put us to work. This is an invitation to put our expertise to work. So if you've got a question about design or design thinking and how it applies to social innovation and social entrepreneurship, ask the question. Please, email me a question, drop it in the chat, and I'll try to address that question in a thoughtful way if I can in one of these seminars. But you can let us help you as well. Again, if you're interested in how you might embed design thinking approaches or design-led strategies in your context with some of the issues that you're working on, I would be prepared to run a number of creative workshops where we could co-develop an initiative with you that would think about how we might best utilize design within your contexts and within your resource pool. So, let us help you. Again, I think that would be really collaborative and really interesting, and again, produce something that would be worthwhile. So if you're interested in how you might embed design thinking within your contexts, reach out to me and let's set up something bespoke for you where we can work with you. Join in. I will be running this year a number of design for social innovation projects, and those projects will work with young talent, it will work with citizens, public and third sector organizations and agencies, and perhaps you. I think there is an opportunity and space within these projects for us to engage as academics, and also to engage possibly some of the related networks and of organizations that we have. So if you're interested in the Design for Social Innovation project that I'll be running, there are a multitude of different ways that you could get involved with that. So if you think that would be something that you'd be interested in seeing unfold, that you'd be interested in engaging in some of the debates or the discussions or some of the ideation sessions, again, let me know, and I can build you into that. The last invitation that I want to make is about how we might use that pilot project and our collective expertise to further amplify social impact. And I'm very keen to start to build a network of interesting partners and collaborators for some grant applications, and grant applications that will extend beyond this cost action, and really seek to develop regenerative systems, embedding design-led approaches that will help to address hardships, inequalities, and environmental damage. So I can already see a collaborator with Zsolt in the work at Tallinn University, but I know there are many others. So if you are interested in this, please get in touch, and and we can set aside some time to start that. So there are 6 discrete invitations, some super easy, just sharing interesting things that you've come across, sharing your stories. There are invitations around posing questions about design and design thinking, or having us work with you and think about how we might embed design thinking or design-led approaches within your institutional contexts. And then there are some more embedded action research opportunities where we can collaborate together this year and in preparation for some grant applications for beyond. Last thing before I say goodbye, this is an interesting paper that I came across recently. It was published just February last year. Why sustainable development requires societal innovation and cannot be achieved without this. It's a really interesting article. It also relates quite strongly to design-led approaches for social innovation and social entrepreneurship. So please check it out and have a read of it. I'd be really interested to know your thoughts. So in drawing this to a close, thank you all very much for your engagement and coming along. We will have another seminar in a month's time, and I have a speaker lined up from Armenia who will talk about how he's been developing some new initiatives around social entrepreneurship and social innovation, embedding design thinking within his HE context in the Armenian country. So thank you all. I look forward to seeing you all again next month. So that's it